So welcome everyone to the online seminar on angel investors for early stage medtech. We have now started the recording. We would like to ask you to keep your cameras off and your microphones muted for the entire duration of the webinar. You can put your questions in the chat and we will pick it up from there. Thank you. Enric, I give the floor to you.
Okay, thanks everyone. So this is another one of the series of webinars for the MedTech portfolio at the EIC. We did a previous webinar on crowdfunding, and one of the things we learned on that webinar was that you could put up on an internet platform the project you're working on, your MedTech device, early stage MedTech project, and then crowd in, syndicate investors. But then a difficult aspect in that path is how do you identify those investors, maybe angel investors, small ticket investors who have a lot of industry knowledge. And so that opens up a new problem. How do we address that? How do we find angel investors? How do we deal with them? So we thought we should focus one webinar on this particular topic. And I'm particularly grateful today that we have two guests. We have Jacopo Losso, who's the director of the European Business Angels Network, and Caroline Sai, who heads the European Health Investor Network for Angel Santé. So Angel Santé is a Europe-wide network focusing on life sciences, and IBAN is again Europe-wide network which focuses more on general areas within angel investment. So thanks both of you for being with us today. We tested all the audio and video technical things. I think it works. So let's go ahead with this, please. If you can give us a bit of an introduction about yourself briefly, and then dive into the slides. The format is usually the same. We try to do like 30-minute slide presentation, and then we dive into Q&A. I try to read the questions on the chat. I might ask some questions myself, but let's make it very dynamic. It's just a conversation. Thanks so much. Go for it, Jacopo.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you hear me well. Thank you, Enric, Panna, and the EIC for inviting us for today's webinar. I'm the Director General of the European Business Angel Network, which is the trade association representing angels in Europe, but also the network that connects, that professionalizes angels across this continent. And we have a membership-based community which includes roughly 120 clubs of investors, which gather roughly 7,000 or so individual business angels, which collectively invest over 400 million euros every year in startups on this continent. And today we'll be hearing a little bit about who the business angels are, and what they look at when they make investments in startups, and then how they help the companies after they've made the investment. And joining me this morning, we have our IBAN board member and also the network director of Angel Santé, and I'm happy to pass the word to Caroline Sai for also a brief intro before we start.
Okay, thank you, Jacopo. I'll be brief, but first of all, thank you all for being present and for inviting us, because I think it's always very exciting to have conversations with startups that are looking to fundraise. So indeed, my name is Caroline. I'm based in Paris, and I head the one of the largest networks in life science of angels called Angel Santé, Angels for Health. We've been around for 15 years. We've got more than 160 members, and we invest exclusively in human and animal health, in biotech, medtech, or digital health companies, usually at seed stage. And then we continue to support our portfolio companies for bridge or Series A rounds. And we also have, so we're proud to be also EIC partners, IBAN members, and we are also operating a fundraising program for Series A companies in healthcare across Europe, which is called the European Health Investor Network, where we connect great companies to great life science VCs, family offices, or corporate VCs. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So let me get the slides up. I'll be sharing the deck, which hopefully you can see now in full screen mode. Just give you an okay. Yep, fantastic. So I'll just go real briefly. I've already told you a little bit about us at EBAN and who we are and the different kind of work we do. But I did not mention enough that when we talk about professionalizing the community, we are also addressing very much you in the audience, the founders, the entrepreneurs that build and launch new companies. And in particular, we support the founders in understanding the investment landscape, the venture capital investment landscape, broadly speaking, and then more in particular, how to present themselves for investment to a business angel investor. What is a business angel investor? Effectively, we're talking about a private individual, he or she, that is investing their own wealth, their own money, into the ventures, into the startup companies that they source through multiple kind of channels. But a business angel is often also called a smart money investor, and this is basically because in addition to the capital they bring, which is quite frankly something that any private individual that has wealth can offer you, they bring three additional big things, and that is that been there and done that before in the business world, typically as an entrepreneur or as somebody that has made it in the corporate world, and they are bringing that experience to the next generation of the entrepreneurs in the form of mentorship and strategic guidance. Being people that have had a history, a successful track record in an industry before, they are usually also bringing along with them their knowledge of the market, their know-how of how the industry works, and even more importantly, I would say the connections and the contacts within that industry, which can become game changers for you as entrepreneurs. And here I'm talking mostly about the connections to the world of corporates and other kind of businesses that hopefully your company can start servicing in the near future. So this is what a real business angel is bringing to the table, in addition to their funding, their experience, their knowledge of the market, and their connections. Let me see here the slides. There we go, the next one. All right, so angel investors are not the only investors you will find when you're launching your business and you're fundraising. However, they are typically the main investors you tend to find in the earlier stages of your company's development. And on this very simple chart, we've tried to illustrate a little bit how the venture capital, we call it the venture capital food chain works. Basically, the different actors that you will find along the life cycle of your company investing increasingly larger amounts as your company risk starts going down. So basically, angel investors, being private individuals investing their own money, are indeed able to take on a lot more risk and are able to accept that risk and reward ratio, and therefore you will mainly find these kinds of actors in the early stages of your company's life cycle. And you may be asking yourself why. Well, the reason is, in the very early years of a company's life, risk of failure is incredibly high. Typically, and this really depends on which statistics you choose to believe, but typically at least 2/3 of companies don't make it past their first 3 years of operations and usually end up failing in the so-called valley of death, which is basically the moment where your company is not yet producing sales, or if it is producing sales, it isn't yet breaking even on those sales. So therefore, it's burning cash and resources a lot faster than it is bringing in new ones. And of course, surviving the valley of death does entail a lot of planning and a lot of thoughtful use of resources. We'll get through the details of this a bit later today, but this is just to kind of illustrate to you that usually when you're a young company, when you're still approaching the market, you haven't yet a viable product, there are very few actors that you will be able to effectively fundraise for. And those tend to be typically private individual investors, such as angels. About half of the venture capital investment in that stage is indeed put in by angels. This is to give you a little bit of an idea of how the angel investment ecosystem looks like across Europe. Our association has been measuring the market for roughly 20 or so years. And on the map, we've made a heat map just to show you a little bit how the different countries in Europe do have, fairly different kind of angel ecosystems and angel markets. On the map, you can see how many millions of euros are invested every year by business angels in startups, with typically the UK being the leading market in Europe, followed by Germany and France. And as you can see on the map, there's quite a lot of difference depending on the ecosystems you are in. This is to some extent to say that not necessarily where you are at today will be able to find the investors that are relevant for your company. Angel investors, as I was saying, make up roughly about half of the venture capital early stage market. The other half represented predominantly by the seed stage venture capital investors, and a very small portion of this industry really represented by the equity crowdfunding deals that get done. And health, just to stay on topic for today, over the years has become increasingly, a predominant sector of investment in the angel world, representing roughly 14% of all euros invested in 2022, and roughly we're collecting the statistics now for 2023, expecting similar kind of spread. I'll go relatively quickly because we then will jump a lot more into the details, but basically a business angel, when they are looking for a startup, everyone really has their own so-called investment criteria, different characteristics, meaning they want to see in the entrepreneurs they're backing. But we chose to list at least 4 that tend to be common, if not, the same for basically every single angel investor. And so these are basically the 4 big things investors look for in the companies they're backing. First and foremost, it's really the passion of the entrepreneurs and the founders, the passion for the problem they are trying to solve. This passion really is something that a lot of investors are trying to look for, because it tends to communicate a lot of other kind of personal traits, such as being very determined or resilient to difficulties. And being passionate about the problem you're solving is really a big thing in making it building a successful venture. And that is because sometimes, actually, I would say more than sometimes, the product that you're developing to solve a specific issue isn't exactly the final product that your market wants. Therefore, if you are really passionate about the problem you're solving and determined to help the clientele that you're servicing to solve that issue, you will be able to adapt your problem to meet the customer needs and their exact demands. Vice versa, we see a lot of times entrepreneurs being very passionate about their solution, and we usually don't like to see so much entrepreneurs falling way too much in love with their product, simply because we don't really know yet if that is the final version that the market will want. So this is just a simple trait that usually comes through really well towards investors. Secondly, it's the uniqueness of what you're doing. Uniqueness being what is different that you are doing in your business compared to the competitors out there. And obviously, as investors, we like to know that we are backing a company that may have an edge on the competition, or create a barrier of entry and therefore gain a lead in the market to establish a certain position. And so demonstrating what's unique and special about your business is really key. Thirdly, it's investors love to back companies that are addressing big problems, meaning addressing large markets, or eventually growing markets, fastly growing markets. And this is because it usually translates to having potential big return on their investment. And the fourth trait, of course, is the team they are backing. So angels usually back people when they're investing in these stages of your company. And the fact that you are a determined group, but also a competent group, diverse in terms of skill set, and to some extent, I would say also with a good track record in your industry, or anyways, your experience in your industry is really something important. And last but not least, the characteristics of being a coachable team. Usually angel investors like to be very involved. They back companies they believe, thanks to their help, will be able to make it. And therefore, they want to be working with people that they are able to coach and they're able to some extent to guide towards success. And yes, as investors, we are investing to have a return. So obviously, before investing, we want to try to build some good confidence that the company we're backing is in the near future, which for us means 5 to 10 years on average, can be sold off to somebody else. This is how angel investors usually help their portfolio companies. For an angel that has a relatively large portfolio of over 20 companies invested, this is how they dedicate in a given month their time. Mostly it's going to advice, it's helping the entrepreneurs, but there's other kinds of support they provide. This really depends on the moment your company is, in which moment it's going through, and which kind of challenges it is facing. It could be, for example, support and fundraising for your next round, which is maybe something they can help through their connections. Or it could be some other kind of contributions, like introducing you to potential clients, or maybe to companies that you can run a pilot with to test out your product, and other kind of support they give. So angels are typically active. Real angel investors, the ones you should be looking for, are the ones that can then dedicate the time to support you and support your growth. Here's a few good and bad things to say, and before I pass it over. So usually what is really important as an entrepreneur when you're talking to a business angel is to really understand who you have in front of you, and if they're the right person or the right group of investors to support you in your own journey and your own vision. And this is something that every entrepreneur should be doing, a little bit of due diligence on who the investors are. And you can start understanding who they are initially by looking at the companies they're investing in and seeing if there are companies that kind of look like you or in a similar industry. Usually that is an indication that that could be the right investors to also listen to you, to your funding request. When we talk about fundraising and funding requests, usually there's a lot of words and numbers that you are expected to already know of and are able to then argument and present properly. So get your numbers and understand the terminology before you are entering these kinds of discussions with investors. A really good thing to also show is your knowledge of the sector you're in, of the market you're in, and therefore the competitive landscape and who your competitors are and what makes you better than them. Fourth, it's really important to show off your team and their experience and their competences, because this is really going to be one of the main factors that an investor will be considering. And then finally, you have to be ready to explain to the investor how they will be able in a somewhat near future to recover and have a good return on the capital they've invested in you. So presenting a so-called exit strategy for the investor is really key to keep in mind as early as the first kind of interactions and meetings you have with such audience. What not to say, so on the right side of the screen. So obviously, when it comes to a lot of deep tech entrepreneurs, there's a huge emphasis typically on the technicalities of your product, forgetting a lot about the actual business and revenue models and profitability of your company, etc., which we as investors are really also very keen on learning. So don't forget to mention also those parts in your presentations. The second one is really a huge red flag for basically everyone. So by all means, do your market research well. As original as you think you may be, there are for sure others out there that are doing something similar to you or exactly the same as you, which you may not be aware of, but for sure an investor that's experienced in this space will have probably already seen before companies similar to you. So be careful with this. No, there is no competitor phrase, because it really is a showstopper in many cases. Not identifying the key risks in your business. This is, huge issue that usually we find in entrepreneurs that don't have much market experience, that maybe they're launching their first company and they haven't really done enough their homework to identify what could go wrong in their vision, and how then, what can we put in place today to help avoid that risk. Fourth, I mentioned this one because of the deep tech kind of startup audience we have today. Usually there's a lot of things that are requested, even in the initial meetings by some entrepreneurs, such as NDAs or some letters to be signed to be able to hear about the company. Again, this is something that is not normal to ask anyone in your initial interactions. NDAs, can actually become quite an issue for us investors if we decide to sign them, because it then kind of prevents us also from looking at many other companies in the same industry we love to invest in. So usually that's a big no that you get from many investors, to be able to kind of sign a non-disclosure agreement just to present them their business. So forget about asking that kind of question, in my opinion. And then lastly, I think it's really overestimating yourselves and your business, given the state you're in, and therefore overestimating your valuation. This is something that usually an investor will also have somewhat of an opinion on, and therefore I think you have to be kind of prepared when you are presenting, a valuation to somebody, to back it up really with good facts and figures and metrics to justify it. And when you're taking comparables into account, I think you have to also put them in the right kind of context, so to not be misunderstood. I think this was my last slide on the deck. And
quick question, Jacopo, if I may.
Yes, please.
What if somebody in the audience says, okay, I'm fundraising for my idea. Do you have like a list of clubs? You mentioned 120 clubs under your umbrella. How can you help the audience get to the angels? Maybe through the club? Should they look at your list and then call the club? Or can you help them connect?
Correct. So typically business angels tend to invest, locally speaking, in their home country. There are angel groups, I would say, in almost every single country in Europe, with a little bit of a difference, as you've seen on the map, depending on the country you are. So, of course, IBAN is listing its direct members on the website. You can find this on iban.org. And across most of the countries in Europe, there are angel groups you can approach. However, there are roughly 400 or so business angel communities in total scattered across Europe. We represent only a part of that market. And by doing some research, you should be able to find angel investors close to you and then approach them with a funding request. Typically, many networks on their websites have a space where entrepreneurs can submit, for example, a pitch deck and the funding request, and then perhaps be selected for interviews and meetings with investors, in subsequent phases. But yeah, that would be like my main advice. And I have a slide at the end dedicated actually to this question. There's also some other ways to get in touch with the angels.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Please,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, so if I can take over from Jacopo and indeed just explain that indeed a lot of the business angel networks are national. We at Angel Santé, we are mainly investing in French companies, but we also take a look at Belgian companies. However, if you're Italian or Spanish, unfortunately, we have French speakers and they want to invest in French companies. So, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, in Europe, there are very few dedicated health investors, but you will find there's a small network of angels for health in Germany. You have one in Switzerland as well called Swiss Health Angels. So if you're from Switzerland, definitely take a look at them. Italian Angels as well. Italian Angels for Growth will have also quite, they have a nice healthcare portfolio. So they do take a look at companies. But most of us will not take a look at companies that are at pre-seed. So we really start investing at seed stage. And I'll get into what we want to look at for a healthcare company. And just to give you an idea, as Jacopo said, most angel networks have platforms where you have to submit your deck, your financial business plan, etc. And then you are usually pre-qualified by the internal team. Then maybe in our case, we have 2 experts for, let's say, for MedTech companies. We'll take 2 MedTech experts to have a call with you for 1 hour and really challenge you on your different things that we'll take a look at in the next slides. And then if we agree, then you can come and pitch in front of all our investors. And that's when our investors decide whether or not they want to go into a due diligence with you. So when you apply, it's not that you're going to have money right away. You need to go through a certain number of steps and convince either individual investors afterwards to invest in you, or some networks also invest through special purpose vehicles. In our case, we only invest individually. So each of our investors decide whether or not they're going on their own with the money. Okay. Next slide, please. So if we take a look at the MedTech things, what do we look for in a healthcare company? Indeed, as Jacopo said, for the team is really important, other than all the soft skills of a CEO that is coachable and things like that. We don't want just a scientific team. You need to have, at least in your development plan, the idea that you're going to have people for your business development. That's really essential. People that are going to be there for your regulatory hurdles and your clinical trials. So we need to have a well-rounded team. In terms of solution, this is really a big debate with companies, because most investors in Europe in healthcare, and especially in MedTech, are very much looking for very innovative solutions to an unmet medical need, something that will either help the healthcare systems across Europe, and you know that we have a lot of issues to solve. If you are repurposing a great, I don't know, like a serang, it might not be that exciting for us, okay? So you need to give a very innovative edge to your solution. We also want to see preliminary data, and that's why we do not invest in projects that are straight coming out of the lab. We need to have at least, either small animal data. If you're at tox level, that's even better, or safety performance, or if you are a MedTech class 1 solution, that at least you've got your CE mark. I'll get back to the CE mark, but for the market as well, we need to make sure that you've got a sizable market where you can grow. And that means not just a national market. And I know in healthcare, it's really complicated because you've got the reimbursement status, you've got a lot of different markets in Europe, but you need to at least show us that within 3 to 5 years, you will be growing out of your own national market and go to foreign markets. And don't hesitate if you're, let's say, from Belgium, and you've got a tiny, tiny market, and you feel that is not the right market for you to start off with, even though it's more comfortable, but because the market is complicated, and you might want to go straight to a larger market like the UK or France, if you can get the reimbursement code, then please do. Don't hesitate to choose a market according to your growth and not according to your comfort zone. And indeed, you need to be able to show us that you have a clear understanding of all the stakeholders. If you're selling a solution to hospitals, but the nurses will be the ones using it, please make sure that you've looked at the whole nurses, their issues, and the time they want to spend using your innovative product. So within healthcare, you are faced with a lot more hurdles than other sectors because you've got various stakeholders, you've got the payers, the reimbursers. So please make sure that if you're selling a product, that you've got the end user feedback, that you've got the stakeholder feedback, and that you are in certain countries able to be reimbursed, because we know in countries like France, for example, we're so used to having reimbursement and not pay anything for our solutions that if you're selling a solution that needs to be fully paid by the hospital or the doctor, that might be a little bit more difficult. And for your growth strategy, yes, you need to have also a clear idea of what the regulatory steps are coming up. What each clinical stage will cost you, because you know that clinical trials are very expensive. And if you're a class 3 medical device, then you are much more capital intensive than if you're a class 2. So you need to make to show us that you know where you're going. Next step. Next slide, please, Jacopo. Yeah, so for pre-seed seed companies, if you're coming to us, this is at least the minimum that we want to see. We talked about, the problem that you're solving, and make sure that you're clear, even if you will pivot, which probably will be the case. But at least you need to make it very clear to us that you're solving a very clear problem. Now, according to the type of angel you're talking to, whether it be a group like ours with experts, you can be technical, but still keep your deck. A third of it will be technical. The rest will be about business, financials, the team, etc. But do adapt your level of technicity to your audience. So if you're in a country where there are no specific healthcare investors, then do try to explain your technical solution to a healthcare problem like you would to a 3-year-old. Keep it simple, but we need to, in the first 2 minutes, understand what kind of problem you're solving and how you want to bring that solution to the market. So with us, you can be more and be ready to be challenged on the technical issues. And that's why if you are a CEO and not the CTO, do come with your CTO to these pitches, because if as a CEO you cannot answer your technical questions, then that is an issue for us. Okay, so you need to be, and same thing, if you're a CEO that is fully scientific and you have no notions of financials and of market business development, then do come with someone in your team that can answer those questions. There's nothing worse, as Jacopo said, to have a CEO who doesn't know what pre-money valuation is. So you need to be, ready for that. Business model. I'm just stopping on the business model because indeed in healthcare, you might have to alter your business model according to the country where you are at, because according to the reimbursement status of that market, then you might need to change. Next one, because I want to finish so we can have time for the questions. These are things that you might want to look at for later stage seed Series A rounds. Obviously, because we are the first investors, we want to mitigate risk as much as possible. And that means for MedTech or biotech companies, what we want to look at is that you have barriers to entry and that you will have value as you grow, and that we're investing in a company that has a future. So we need to make sure that, one, if you've got publications, please have those, especially when you're ready to go see VCs, they will ask for your publications. That gives extraordinary value to your research. IP, your IP portfolio, you need to build it slowly but surely. I know it's expensive, but you need to build that portfolio for us. The licensing, the ownership of your IP, very important. If it's only the CEO, and sometimes we see it, that is the owner of the IP, that is an issue, because if the CEO is changed, we need to have the company that is the owner and not the university either. So sometimes we've got deals that stop because there are issues with the universities, with the licensing agreement or the ownership of the IP. I won't go back to the well-balanced team. We already experienced that, but that's very important. And for MedTech or life science companies, the board and the KOLs are very important for us. Especially, we need to see that you've got a scientific board that approves of your science and where you're going and how you're going about doing it. And do try to make your scientific board and your KOLs as international as possible. If you're Italian and you only have Italian doctors with an Italian name, you know, it might not have as much impact once you go and see international VCs. You might need to get some KOLs in the US or elsewhere in Europe, okay? And data, if you do use data, please make sure that you are very much aware of the quality of your data sets. That's very important for us because, for example, if you're doing clinical trials for your AI product with a data set that you got with Asian patients, and your market is a European market, then that is not the right data set, and the quality of it will really, really be important, as well as other aspects that you see here. Next slide. Yeah, and then as you move forward, you need to show us that you know where you're going, even if you haven't reached that stage. For the MedTech companies, obviously, you need to get to your GMP. You need to think of, am I going to outsource my manufacturing? If so, where about in the world? What if there's another COVID solution and I can't get my spare parts, my sensors, whatever, from Asia? You need to be able to make sure that your manufacturing cost will go down and that you can be financially attractive to the market. The regulatory roadmap, I know we're in a difficult space in Europe, especially for MedTech companies. Hang in there. We don't want you to necessarily go to the US. And remember, the US is indeed a great market, but loads of competition as well. Very expensive market to enter. And please note that most US investors will not invest in a European company until they've reached the FDA approval hurdles. So if you're pre-FDA, you know, you might work on both the MDR and the FDA, but please don't talk to a European investors with solely a US program of development, because if I'm a European investor and I'm a smart investor, I want to be able to bring something to your company. And if you're solely looking at the US market, then don't talk to me. Talk to a US investor. Okay. And that's it. And validation, of course, and I'll finish with that. Really, really get as many points of validation as you can before you come and talk to angels, and even more when you go to VCs. Anything like your ISO certification, any preclinical demonstration of safety, efficacy, commercial value, test with patients and hospitals. Yeah, so that, I think that's my last slide.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And these are just, little easy, glossary of things that you need to know. What's your USP, what's a due diligence? How does it work? The various stages, seed, bridge, Series A. We can talk about, should we give a title to your round or not? Again, bootstrapping for us, when you are a very early stage, you're thinking of a project and you're out of a lab or university, we advise you to bootstrap, go and get non-dilutive funding, and then come to us when you're at a seed stage, probably a TRL 4 onwards, then you can come to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I think you mentioned that these keywords, you might have definitions we can circulate amongst the audience. Is that maybe there's a link we can circulate? Okay.
Sure.
Just a quick question. You said pre-seed could be too early. So for the audience, if they are scientists working on one of our early stage projects, Pathfinders, how soon should they go to the list of clubs, pick an individual club based on geography, submit an idea? What's pre-seed and seed?
Well, for us, and then I'll let Jacopo fill in the gaps. For us, as I said, is you need to obviously know exactly, or at least have a clear, even if you haven't chosen the indication, you need to have an idea of what issue you're solving, what unmet medical need you're solving, what solution you want to bring to that issue. And you need to have the company that is created. First of all, we can't invest in something that is not created. So you need to have the company created. You have to have at least one full-time employee. One is very insufficient. We usually don't invest if there's only one employee. At least two, okay, or maybe one full-time and two part-time if really times are tough. We need you to have at least small animal data. And for MedTech companies, if you're a class 3 MedTech company, you can be maybe 3 years from the CE mark. If you're a class 2, 18 months, okay? And if you're a class 1, you should already be certified, if that answers your question.
Yes, very good. So some funding should have been injected already so they can hire this single person or 2, 3.
Absolutely. They should have at least, and I know Europe is not all countries are on the same level, but you have certain countries in Europe that are very generous in terms of public funding. So try to get as many public funding as you can get. Try to, I know it takes time, but if you can participate in competitions, join accelerators that can give you a label that also has value until you get more, value through your data and equity. So try to get as many, your name out there and get as much support that will cost you time, but not money.
Yeah. Sorry. We have some questions on the chat, but you, Jacopo, I don't want.
No, let's go to the questions. No, I think this really covers it well.
Thanks so much. Let's go for the questions from the chat. So the first one is from Barbara. You showed us, Jacopo, the map identifying the total aggregate amount devoted to angel investment. It's an interesting question. Barbara is saying, do you have a feeling for the per capita investment rather than the aggregate, no? So which country seems to have more interest in angel investment per capita?
Of course, we do. On our website, if you visit eban.org, we have a section where we publish our annual statistics report in the Knowledge Center. Off the top of my head, Estonia is the #1 country when it comes to investment per capita. Clearly, Estonia is not a huge country in terms of population, so hence also a little bit the explanation as to why. But among, let's say, the bigger countries, we definitely see the UK being, in the lead when it comes to investment ecosystem. They started more than 30 years ago with a culture of investment and innovation, with financial incentives given to investors to take on more risk and invest. So I would say, for the specific question, it's Estonia, and then I think there are some other relatively small countries that also follow. But if you're looking for the bigger players, it's definitely the UK and Germany, France, also big markets. Spain as well is very active community. And then there's some countries on the fast rise. In some parts of the CEE, for example, we're seeing a lot more growth, although the overall volume is still far away from, let's say, the Western European markets.
Very good. Thank you. Next one is a difficult one, I think. What is the selling point when there is no market? Because it's a very new innovation. The market is not there yet. That's a difficult one. Now, who wants to take on this one? How can you convince angel investors to be interested if the market is not there? Because probably it's too new and nobody knows about it, so there is no real demand.
I'll try to answer with the basic. First thing that I would say is, what problem are you solving, and is it really a problem? And find out from somebody that has this problem if they would be able to pay for your solution. And that's the simple and short answer, I think, to this one.
Yeah, I think it's the is your solution a nice to have, or is it a must have? And if it's a must have, and you found an incredible solution to a problem that everybody knows but never envisioned that there could be a solution, then great. But if it's just a nice to have thing, is it worth it? That's the question to be asked.
It's a difficult one. It's an interesting one. I think the cell phone, this question comes up all the time. And I remember in the 90s, some people said they didn't want to use cell phones. They would never use them. No, in the end, we all depend on them.
Exactly.
It's a good question, but it's a difficult one. No? You have to be at the right time in history. Okay.
And then there's always the question of, and this is fundamental throughout any sector, is, okay, you've got a great idea, but are people ready to pay for it? Until somebody is ready to pay for it, then it's a great idea, but it's not a product or a service. So for you to start a company, you need to be able, the real world is not a Disney world where investors will just inject money year after year, so you can have a Uber or those kind of rare unicorns. And again, unicorns only exist in Disney World. So in the real world, we're more looking for rhinoceros, talk about animals, real animals that will grab a market and will make money for their investors. Because let's remember, we are investors. We are in the investing business, but we're also in the divesting business. We want to get our money back so we can re-inject it. So if your idea will not make any money, if no one is ready to pay for it, then we're not interested, in essence.
Thank you. Yeah, so identifying the problem that's being solved can help in those cases, even though there might not be a strong demand. But if the problem is there, it makes sense. Okay, thanks so much for your answers and for the question. Okay, another interesting question. I think this one is mixing about a bit crowdfunding and angel investment. So the question is, if angels are investing through a syndicate, does the investee, there was a typo there, have a right to know who the individual investors are? I think for the case of business angels, you know who the angel is, but for crowdfunding, maybe you're blindfolded. But this question is mixing, no? Who wants to take on this one?
Go ahead, Jacopo.
Yeah. Do they have a right to know?
They usually know, I suppose. No, I mean, if you get investment from an angel, you know who if there are 2 or 3 angels, you know who the angels are.
Yeah.
In the community.
And of course, I would say almost always they do know who they are, because usually then the investors are called to sign, the shareholders agreement with the company. However, it's true, if they are bundled up in a syndicate and that syndicate is represented by one investor, usually the one that is, the liaison, the interface between the group of angels and the startup, not necessarily they may be aware of all of the people inside their syndicate. In my direct experience, for example, we form a limited liability company, then appoint a person to represent us. The entrepreneur does know us because of the introductions that have been made and have been done. And I think in any case, if an entrepreneur does want to know, the full list of people, usually in this space, there's, we're in this together. So we're now investing in your company. We're part of your, cap table. We're shareholders, maybe not in a large degree in the company, but we're in it with you. So it's absolutely a team. There's a team dynamic there. But is there a right to know? I would say, legally speaking, I'm not sure if there is a right to know, but it is a good practice to anyways be transparent and have everybody aware. Usually people in the syndicate that are more passive don't necessarily get involved or need to be, known by the entrepreneur. However, in the syndicates, there are also investors that do roll up their sleeves and make some introductions or take care of the some specific issue where they can intervene or provide some support. And yes, then, the names do come out and people are aware of each other. Caroline, maybe you wanted to add?
No, complete. I've never seen a case where an investor did not, even through an SPV, did not want his name to be out to the CEO. And I really would recommend that you, even if it's an SPV and there's only one president that is in contact directly with you, I would really advise you to look at the profiles of the people who have invested in you. Some indeed, as Jacopo said, will only be there to put, 10, 20,000, but do not want to get involved. But just for you to know who's in your company and who could be helpful for if you've got any issues at one point or another. You might have an interesting profile in there that you want to contact. Maybe if you're ready to go and find partners in a specific country, you might want to contact that gentleman who spent 20 years working there. And I also, and this is really, I think, a good piece of advice I would give you, is to always maintain a very nice relationship with your investors, even the first ones. Make sure that you do at least a small recap of where you are every 3 to 6 months, and ask the president of that SPV to really send it out to everyone, because they're your best ambassadors. Tomorrow, if you want to raise a Series A, your angels will, of course, help you if you've maintained a healthy communication channel with them, because indeed it's all in their interest for you to find your next source of funding so you can continue to grow and so that they can exit. But if you are silent for the next 2 years and 2 years later you're like, oh, hello, can I have some extra 500,000? Then forget it. We want to know where you're going, and just keep us posted. It doesn't, it's all about communicating.
Very good. We have so many questions. I'm going to ask you to give us very, very, very quick answers. So first one is, how long should the pitch be the first time you talk to an angel? What's your intuition there? Should it be 5 minutes, 1 minute, should it be 20 minutes, 1 hour?
Depends how much time. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, it depends on the network. For us, it's once you've gone through the selections, we give you 7 minutes to pitch in front of our investors. Some networks do 5 and some networks do 10. It's rarely for a pitch session. It's rare that you're given more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, and maybe I comment on this point with the slide that we have up. So because we were asked earlier,
we have many questions. Keep it short.
Yeah. So basically, be ready anyways to have that 1 minute version perfectly said, like, you know, that's your introduction. That's really kind of like your business card. Have that your elevator pitch as well properly ironed out, so that then maybe you can get invited to do the 7 or 10 or a minute pitch or longer.
Very good. How big the market should be for this to be interesting for the angels? Or is it sizable?
I have an investor that tried once to work out the math using a lot of companies and investments the guy has seen and done over the years, and he thinks that if you have a total addressable market of at least 300 million euros, you should be able to carve out some kind of a return for your investors in it. But this is like one of those rule of thumb kind of notions. I wouldn't, like, you know, put that on black and white or say it's a scientific, but as of some
quantitative,
direct experience. Yeah.
No, thanks. This is really useful, that data. Okay. Do angels take up promising technologies and become partners in development? Like getting involved in the startup. Rosalind, what do you think?
And get involved in startup company establishment?
Rarely, I would say, no? We are investors.
We're not venture builders, huh?
Yes.
We're not venture builders. There's a difference between angels that are within networks and angels that are alone. Angel within networks, Jacopo, tell me if I'm wrong, we wouldn't do it. If you're an individual investor and you've got, you know, a couple of 100,000, maybe millions to put into a company, and you're really excited about a technology, and you don't have to explain anything to anyone, then you just put your money where you want. Yes. Maybe, but
yes,
us, no.
It's rare. Okay. Where could I find lists of angel funds in Scandinavia, Norway?
So this is point 2 on the slide. Besides our website, you know, check out platforms like Crunchbase, PitchBook, Dealroom. Use Google. You'll be able to find them. Investor groups like to be found, so they are publicly advertising that, you know, they want to invest in the best companies. Please approach us if you think you're the best. So do a little bit of that proactively. In the Nordics, there is a huge community between Scandinavian countries all the way to the Baltics. There's really a lot of good angel groups, lots of seed stage VCs, and of course, plenty of MedTech investors as well.
Yeah, and do look at the hubs. I know that in Norway, you've got a health tech hub that is quite active. Take a look on their website, look at their sponsors or partners, usually they're investors. And in Sweden as well, there's a MedTech group, and there, you know, there's the there's one major angel network in Denmark, in Norway, and so each of those countries have an official angel group, but you also have health hubs that are interesting to contact as well, accelerators.
That's very useful. Thank you. Another question is asking about valuation. Is there a maximum valuation above which you think angels will be out?
Yeah, for us, and Jacopo, you can, in healthcare, for a first-time investment at seed stage, will rarely go beyond 10 to 12 million. That has to be really a great company, and we don't want to miss out. But usually, we invest companies that are between 2 to 4 million in pre-money valuation.
And some groups say that, you know, that is kind of part of their investment criteria. They will advertise it online and say, we look for companies that have A, B, C, D, E characteristics and are valued within 5 million pre-money, as an example. Sometimes it isn't a hard criteria. There are angels that one, really get into that company because they believe in the product and they believe in the founders, and they may be able to push the problem down the road by doing a convertible note or a safe note investment in you, and then see if in a Series A round you are valued, you know, the 50 million pre-money that you were asking, you know, this morning when we met. So there are ways to get around it, but usually when an entrepreneur shows up with a valuation that is really far off from reality, it's a pretty strong indication to us that either they don't know this market that much, they haven't done their homework that much, they're probably overestimating a lot their success. Sometimes we pass on those. We simply let them go.
Yeah, I completely agree.
There's a question on software. If it's difficult to build an IP portfolio around software, is that a problem for angel investors? If there is no hardware, there's just software, then the IP situation is not so clear.
No, absolutely. So there's an article on our website. It's in French, unfortunately, but about this issue. You know, your brand can be also under an IP. So you take a look at things that you can have under your intellectual property. And then when you are solely software, in reality, what will be important is how fast you can get market shares. That's how fast can you be compared to your competition. We know that a lot of these of your companies, you cannot have any publications or IP or whatever. So it's your sales. If you're selling to hospitals, we know that it's a very long cycle to sell to hospitals. But then again, when they do have a supplier, they don't like to change. So the faster you can get to those clients, the more that will be considered as a barrier to entry. So don't worry too much about having IP if you're solely a digital solution without any hardware, but you need to show that you can move fast.
Very good. Let's take the last question. We actually missed a couple of them, but time is very tight. The final question could be this one. It's about, again, the position along the life of the company when it's best to approach angels. You've mentioned some of these for class 3, class 2. What are your final thoughts about this? Because if they go in really early, valuation is low, but there is a long path still to market. If you're close to market, valuation might be too high, angels might be out. What are your final thoughts on this? At what point should they approach angels, particularly from MedTech? You know, where there could be a long path to market.
I mean, for MedTech companies, if you are, let's say, a class 3, which is very capital intensive, we know it's long. Again, as I said, you need to have your company created. You have to have bodies in your company. You need to have already identified the solution that you want to bring to the market. You need to have the technology that might not be fully validated, but you're about to validate it, both in the lab and with you know, small animal, and then moving on towards larger animals, and to move along the path of the preclinical. And we know that for you know, we've invested in class 3 MedTech companies, and 7 years later we still haven't exited, so we know that it's long. But if you don't exactly know which indication you want to target, which subgroup of patients or whatever, then think about that before you come to see us.
Very good. Well, with that, we conclude the session today. Thanks again, Jacopo and Rosalind, for your time. Thanks to the audience, and as usual, thanks to my colleagues, Panna and Liva. I hope this was useful. So let's remain connected through the EIC portfolio.